Shabbat Shalom to everyone. It's a pleasure to see so many people this morning, to welcome everyone who's here for Serena's Bat Mitzvah. And as Chazan Osterklein mentioned last night, as opening day, Farzan for many years has reminded us that the first Bat Mitzvah of our new calendar year is also opening day. So a day for us to all remember your Bat Mitzvah this morning. As we heard a moment ago, one of the tunes that Chazan Osterklein wove into Shacharit reminds us that tonight begins Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in our Jewish calendar, commemorating the destruction of both temples in Yerushalayim, as well as several other calamities that have befallen the Jewish people. Tonight we'll sit on the floor, mournful, and chant the Book of Lamentations. The first word of that book and the name that it's known through in Hebrew is Echa, asking how the city of Jerusalem, once full of people, is now abandoned. While Echa is most associated with Tisha B'Av, that same word actually appears a number of times in this morning's Parsha and in the Haftarah that we'll hear chanted shortly. And it asks the similar theme. How can the faithful city of Yerushalayim fall into such a terrible state? Today, I also find myself asking, Echa, how? How did we get to this point? For the past week or so, I was in the mountains of Colorado, taking in as much natural beauty and cool weather as possible. I hiked and I biked in the mountains. I sat and read overlooking these beautiful mountains. No matter what I was doing, I found myself in such a peaceful setting. Unfortunately, as much as I tried to refrain from myself from social media and constantly reading the news, I found it difficult. Every time I looked at my phone, there was a new update circulating, slamming Israel for the lack of aid in Gaza. Some of these articles were written by people who I have deep respect for, but I'm afraid on this issue made a gigantic mistake of where they placed the blame. As our most recent scholar in residence, Madi Friedman, wrote this past week in the Free Press, we cannot trust any news information coming out of Gaza, especially not the Hamas health ministry. Remember almost 2 years ago, when every news organization reported that Israel had bombed a hospital in Gaza, killing hundreds? The New York Times headline that day read, at least 500 dead. Where did that news come from? The Hamas health ministry. Protest and violence erupted around the world that were directed at both Jews and Israelis. As we know, that hospital was not hit by an Israeli bomb, but rather a misfired Palestinian rocket. Echa, how did the world believe Hamas then? And Echa, how does the world believe Hamas today? Madi Friedman continues his article, highlighting that Israel may not be free of criticism. There may be hunger in Gaza, and the past week has raised serious concern in the Israeli public. However, these claims are not new and have been used for decades against Israel and has never once been proved to be true. Could Israel do better? Of course it could. But Israel responded to these reports of increased food shortages with more airdrops of food and relief efforts, even short humanitarian pauses in the fighting without any reciprocation from Hamas. Yet, the world has once again accepted Hamas's narrative as fully factual. How does this happen? The same New York Times that once had that Palestinian rocket uses a backdrop of a photo of a young Palestinian boy it claims suffered from malnourishment. Again, there may be some evidence of hunger, but they missed a critical piece of information that this young boy also suffers from other medical issues. Just like that rocket reporting, the world damage has already been done, once again, at the expense of the Jewish people and at Israel. How? Echa. For almost 666 days, 666 days. We've had a wonderful group of volunteers at our congregation who printed and maintained those hostage posters outside of our shul that you probably saw as you came in this morning, ensuring that the hostages are not forgotten. For the first time since the war began, they were vandalized this past week. Someone placed a piece of paper over the faces of the hostages, which read, "Stop starving Gaza." Israel is not starving Gaza. Hamas is ensuring that the world hears this narrative. The world should know this already. Also, whoever put these signs up had no issue covering up the face of a human being who was pulled from their home on October 7th, 2023, and has been held hostage by a terrorist organization for 666 days. How could they cover their face like they don't even exist? They did not start this war. They are the victims of Hamas's war. Do these same people that are calling out Israel also protest that the hostages should be visited by the International Red Cross, the UN, or any other health organization? In almost 2 years, not one of these organizations has visited a hostage taken on October 7th. Where is that outrage? I'm heartbroken by how the world has responded to Israel since October 7th of 2023. Almost immediately, everyone seemed to forget that Hamas was the one who invaded Israel, captured hostages, and mutilated Israelis. It became Israel's fault. And today, once again, that has been further highlighted. At times, I can almost understand how people who do not know the full history get swept up in the inaccurate news reporting and come to their conclusions. But Echa, how do world leaders come to the same conclusion, even this week coming out to say that they will recognize a Palestinian state this fall? That rewards terrorism, kidnapping, rape, and torture. When terrorists act with such disregard to human life, and the world accepts their accounts without evidence or research, the world and many world leaders forget the past. They forget what happened on October 7th and the continued atrocities of Hamas. Instead, they continue to direct their only hate towards the one Jewish state in the world. This Shabbat, we begin the 5th book of the Torah, Devarim, Deuteronomy. It is mostly Moses' farewell address to the Israelites and includes retelling many of the most central mitzvot of the Torah. As Moses approaches the end of his leadership, he did not want the Israelites to misunderstand or forget any of these central teachings that were to guide our people. Echa, how did we get here? Anti-Semitism is one answer, but it is not the only one, especially since some Jews are the ones writing these very articles about Israel. The bigger issue is lack of memory or knowledge. Do not remain silent. Remind everyone you know what Hamas did on October 7th, their manipulation of facts about the 50 hostages that are still held in Gaza today. Yes, Israel can do better, and it is already doing more in this past week. But unfortunately, Israel alone cannot change the reality of Gaza. Only Hamas can. Instead of believing every report from Hamas, which only gives them more power and the desire to continue their terrorist tactics, people in the world must hold them accountable to at least the same standards that we hold Israel. When that happens, hopefully we can see a more peaceful region and prosperity for both Israelis and Palestinians. Shabbat Shalom.